The hotel keycard felt like plastic failure between my fingers as I stared at the ceiling that wasn't mine. 24 hours ago, I'd been Elliot Rayner, married homeowner. Now I was Elliot Rayner, guy who got kicked out of his own house by his wife so her boyfriend could move in. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," Lauren had said, standing in our kitchen. Correction, what I thought was our kitchen, with her arms crossed like she was scolding a child. "Trent needs a place to stay, and honestly, Elliot, we both know this marriage has been over for months." I'd looked at her, really looked at her, probably for the first time in years. 41 years old, still beautiful in that sharp-edged way that had first attracted me, but now those edges seemed designed to cut. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled even though it was 8 in the morning, and she wore the kind of outfit that cost more than most people's car payments. "Just like that?" I'd asked, setting down my coffee mug on the granite countertop we'd picked out together 3 years ago. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. "Just like that," she'd confirmed him, not even having the decency to look uncomfortable. "I've already talked to Trent about it. He'll be here this afternoon." Trent Bishop, creative director at Lauren's advertising agency, which was a fancy way of saying he made PowerPoint presentations look pretty and charged clients 5 times what they were worth. I'd met him at company parties, watched him work a room like a politician, all white teeth and firm handshakes. He drove a black Audi that he parked like he owned every space in the city. "Where exactly am I supposed to go?" I'd asked, proud of how calm my voice sounded. Lauren had shrugged, actually shrugged, like she was discussing what to have for lunch. "That's not really my problem anymore, is it? Maybe stay with your sister, maybe get a hotel. I don't know, Elliot. Figure it out." So I had. 1 bag, hastily packed while Lauren supervised like a prison guard, making sure I didn't take anything that might be disputed in the divorce she'd apparently already planned. I'd grabbed clothes, toiletries, my laptop, and the small wooden box that held my father's watch and wedding ring. Everything else, 15 years of marriage, of building a life together, stayed behind. The Marriott downtown wasn't fancy, but it was clean and anonymous, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and the Wi-Fi was strong enough for me to work remotely. I'd called my boss, made up some story about a family emergency, and bought myself a week to figure out what came next. What came next, as it turned out, was a phone call from Mrs. DeLuca, our 70-year-old neighbor who had the unfortunate habit of knowing everyone's business better than they did themselves. "Elliot, honey," she'd said in her raspy voice, "I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I thought you should know. That man of Lauren's, he's got a moving truck in your driveway, and they're bringing in furniture like they're moving in permanent." I'd thanked her, hung up, and opened my laptop. The home security system I'd installed 2 years ago was still linked to my phone, still using my credit card for the monthly service fee that Lauren had never bothered to learn about. Amazing what you could see with a few strategically placed cameras when the people you were watching thought they had complete privacy. The footage was better than cable television and twice as infuriating. Lauren and Trent celebrating their new living arrangement with champagne in my living room. Trent's hands all over my wife, ex-wife, I corrected myself, while she giggled like a teenager. They'd moved his leather furniture in to replace mine, hung his pretentious abstract art where my family photos used to be. But the most interesting part wasn't what they were doing. It was what they were saying. "I can't believe he just left," Trent had said, sprawled on his expensive couch like he owned the place. No fight, no argument, nothing. What kind of man just walks away from his own house? Lauren had laughed, that sharp sound I'd once found charming. "The kind of man who never really belonged here in the first place. Honestly, Trent, you have no idea how invisible he was. Even when he was here, it was like living alone." "Well, now you really are living with someone," Trent had said, pulling her closer. "Someone who appreciates what he's got." They'd kiss then, long and dramatic, and I'd close the laptop before I had to watch what came next. But I'd heard enough. More than enough. The next morning, I'd made 2 phone calls. The first was to my sister Dawn, who lived across town and had never particularly liked Lauren. "She what?" Dawn had practically shouted into the phone. "She kicked you out so her boyfriend could move in? Elliot, please tell me you're not just rolling over and taking this." "I'm not rolling over," I'd assured her. "I'm planning." "Planning what?" "You'll see." The second call was to Priya Patel, the family lawyer who'd handled my father's estate when he died 5 years ago. Priya was sharp as a knife and twice as cutting when she needed to be. She also had a very good memory for legal details. "Elliot," she'd said when I explained the situation, "please tell me you remember what we discussed when your father left you the house." Refresh my memory. "The house isn't in your name. It's owned by the Rayner Family Trust, with you as the sole beneficiary and trustee. Your wife has no legal claim to the property whatsoever. She can't give anyone permission to live there, and she certainly can't kick you out of your own family's house. I'd felt something cold and satisfying settle in my chest. What are my options? Well, Priya had said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. We could start with a formal eviction notice. Both your wife and her friend are currently trespassing on trust property. We could have them removed as early as this afternoon. Do it. Elliot, are you sure? This is going to be very public, very embarrassing for Lauren. I'm sure. 2 hours later, I was parked across the street from my house, watching through binoculars as 2 police officers knocked on the front door. Lauren answered in a silk robe that probably cost more than most people's rent, her face shifting from confusion to alarm as the officers explained the situation. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see Lauren's gestures becoming more frantic, more desperate. She kept pointing inside the house, probably trying to explain that she lived there, that this was all a mistake. The officers remained politely unmoved. Trent appeared in the doorway, wearing nothing but boxer shorts and an expression of pure panic. One of the officers handed him what I knew was the eviction notice, giving him exactly 24 hours to remove himself and all his belongings from the premises. The neighbors were starting to notice. Mrs. DeLuca had positioned herself on her front porch with a cup of coffee, pretending to water plants that clearly didn't need watering. The Johnsons from 2 doors down were walking their dog very slowly past my house, craning their necks to get a better view. Lauren was crying now, actual tears streaming down her face as she tried to explain something to the officers. But there was no explaining away the legal documents Priya had prepared, no arguing with the property records that clearly showed the Rayner family trust as the sole owner of 1247 Maple Street. The officers left after about 20 minutes, but the show was far from over. I watched Lauren and Trent have what appeared to be a heated argument in the driveway, both of them gesticulating wildly while the neighbors pretended not to stare. Finally, Lauren stormed back into the house, slamming the door hard enough that I could hear it from across the street. My phone rang. Lauren's name appeared on the screen. "Elliot, what the hell is this?" she screamed before I could even say hello. "The police just came here saying we're trespassing. This is our house." "Actually," I said calmly, "it's not. It's my family's house. Always has been. You just never bothered to ask whose name was on the deed." "That's impossible. We've been married 15 years. It's community property." "Community property laws don't apply to assets held in trust, Lauren. The house belongs to the Rayner family trust. I'm the trustee. You're nobody." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for nearly 30 seconds. When Lauren spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. "Elliot, please, we can work this out. We can talk about this like adults." "We could have talked about it like adults before you decided to move your boyfriend into my house," I said. "Now you have 24 hours to get out. Both of you." "Where are we supposed to go?" "That's not really my problem anymore, is it?" I said, using her own words from the day before. "Figure it out." I hung up and drove back to the hotel, feeling better than I had in months. The next morning brought another phone call from Mrs. DeLuca. "Elliot, honey, you need to get over here. There's a locksmith changing all the locks on your house, and Lauren is having some kind of breakdown on the front lawn." I arrived to find exactly what Mrs. DeLuca had described. A professional locksmith was installing new deadbolts on both the front and back doors, while Lauren stood in the driveway in yesterday's clothes, screaming at him to stop. Trent was nowhere to be seen, but his black Audi was gone, which told me everything I needed to know about his commitment to their relationship when things got difficult. "You can't do this," Lauren was shouting at the locksmith, who was pointedly ignoring her while he worked. "I live here. This is my house." "Ma'am," the locksmith said patiently, "I'm just doing what the property owner requested. You'll need to take it up with him." That's when Lauren saw me. Her face went through about 6 different emotions in the space of 2 seconds, finally settling on pure rage. "Elliot, tell him to stop. Tell him this is all a mistake." I walked up to the locksmith and handed him a tip. "Thanks, Dave. Send the bill to my lawyer." "No problem, Mr. Rayner. The new keys are in that envelope there." Lauren watched in horror as I pocketed the envelope. "Elliot, please. My things are in there. My clothes, my jewelry, everything." "Your things are being professionally packed as we speak," I said, nodding toward the moving truck that was just pulling into the driveway. "They'll be placed in a storage facility. You'll get the address once you've paid the first month's fees." "I don't have money for storage fees. You cleaned out our bank accounts." "I cleaned out the trust's bank accounts," I corrected. "Money that was never yours to begin with, just like the house was never yours to give away." The movers were already bringing out boxes, working with the kind of efficient speed that suggested they'd done this before. Lauren's designer clothes, her expensive shoes, her collection of art books that she'd never actually read, all of it reduced to cardboard boxes and packing tape. A small crowd had gathered. Mrs. DeLuca was still on her porch, now joined by her husband. The Johnsons had given up all pretense of walking their dog and were just standing on the sidewalk watching. Even the mailman had slowed down to take in the show. "This is humiliating," Lauren whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," I agreed. "It is." My phone buzzed with a text message from Dawn. "Saw the news about Lauren on Facebook. Mrs. Johnson posted pictures. Are you okay?" I typed back, "Never better." Another text, this one from my old friend Mason. "Dude, what the hell is happening? Shauna is posting all kinds of crazy stuff about you online." Shauna. Lauren's best friend and co-conspirator, the one who'd probably been encouraging this whole affair from the beginning. I'd forgotten about her, but apparently she hadn't forgotten about me. I opened Facebook and found exactly what I'd expected. Shauna had posted a long, rambling rant about what a terrible husband I'd been, how Lauren had been trapped in a loveless marriage, how I was being vindictive and cruel by throwing her out of her own home. The post had dozens of comments, most of them from people I'd thought were friends. "Elliot was always controlling," wrote Jennifer Walsh, who'd been to our house for dinner probably 50 times. "Lauren deserves better." "I never liked him," added Mike Peterson, who'd borrowed my lawnmower every summer for the past 5 years. "Something creepy about him." It was fascinating, really, how quickly people turned when they thought they smelled blood in the water. How eager they were to rewrite history, to paint me as the villain in a story they'd only heard one side of. But two could play that game. I took out my phone and opened the video I'd recorded from the security cameras the night before. Lauren and Trent celebrating their victory, talking about how invisible I was, how I didn't belong in my own house. The audio was crystal clear, their words damning in their casual cruelty. I uploaded it to Facebook with a simple caption. "Since there seems to be some confusion about what really happened, here's the truth. This was recorded in my family's house the night after my wife moved her boyfriend in and threw me out. Judge for yourselves." The response was immediate and brutal. Within an hour, the video had been shared dozens of times. The comments on Shauna's post shifted from supportive to shocked to outright hostile. "Oh my God, Lauren, how could you say those things?" wrote Jennifer Walsh, apparently forgetting her earlier support. "This is disgusting," added Mike Peterson. "I can't believe I defended her." My phone rang. It was Mason. "Jesus Christ, Elliot," he said without preamble. "I had no idea. When Shauna told us you'd just abandoned Lauren, we thought you'd lost your mind or something. And now? Now I think Lauren lost her mind. And her boyfriend is a piece of work. Have you seen what people are posting about him?" I hadn't, but I looked. Apparently Trent Bishop had something of a reputation around town. 3 different women had come forward with stories about his wandering eye, his habit of making promises he couldn't keep, his tendency to disappear when relationships got complicated. "He hit on my sister at a Christmas party 2 years ago," one woman wrote, right in front of his girlfriend at the time. "Total scumbag." "He borrowed money from me and never paid it back," wrote another. "Said he was between projects." Yeah, right. The narrative was shifting, and Lauren was on the wrong side of it. By evening, she'd deleted her Facebook account entirely, but the damage was done. Screenshots of the video were everywhere, along with increasingly creative memes about cheating wives and the men who enabled them. I felt a moment of something that might have been pity. Then I remembered the sound of her laughter as she talked about how invisible I was, and the feeling passed. The storage facility called the next morning. Lauren hadn't shown up to claim her belongings or pay the fees. They wanted to know what to do with everything. "Hold on to it," I said. "Send her a bill. If she doesn't pay within 30 days, dispose of it however you see fit." "Sir, some of this stuff looks pretty valuable. Designer clothes, jewelry, that kind of thing." "Not my problem." I hung up and checked my email. There was a message from Priya with the subject line, "Invoice for services rendered." Lauren now owed the trust $15,000 in legal fees, storage costs, locksmith charges, and damages for unauthorized occupancy. The bill had been sent to her parents' house, since that was the only address we had for her. My phone rang again. This time it was Lauren's mother, Patricia Burton, calling from their house in the suburbs. "Elliot," she said in the tone of voice usually reserved for discussing terminal illnesses. "We need to talk." "Hello, Patricia. How are you?" "Don't you how are you me, young man. What you've done to Lauren is unconscionable. She's been staying here for 3 days, crying constantly, and now you're sending her bills she can't possibly pay?" "The bills are for services she required," I said calmly. "Legal eviction, professional packing and storage, lock replacement due to unauthorized key distribution, all perfectly reasonable charges. She's your wife. She's my ex-wife who committed adultery and tried to steal my family's house. The fact that she's your daughter doesn't change the law, Patricia. This isn't about the law, it's about basic human decency. You're absolutely right, I agreed. It is about basic human decency, which is why I didn't press charges for trespassing, fraud, or theft. I just wanted my house back. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. She says the boyfriend left town, just disappeared without a word. Smart man. Elliot, please, she has nowhere to go. We're not in a position to support her long term. Your father-in-law's retirement isn't what we'd hoped, and with the medical bills... I'd forgotten about Patricia's cancer treatments the year before. The Burtons had always lived beyond their means, all appearance and no substance, but the medical bills had apparently forced them to face reality. That's unfortunate, I said, and meant it. But it's not my responsibility anymore. What if she apologizes? What if she tries to make this right? Patricia, she moved another man into my house and told me to figure out where to live. She called me invisible. She laughed about it. There's no coming back from that. Everyone makes mistakes, Elliot. You're not perfect either. No, I'm not. But I never cheated on her, never humiliated her, never tried to steal her family's property. My mistakes were things like working too much and not paying enough attention. Her mistakes were felonies. I hung up before she could respond. The rest of the week passed quietly. I worked from the hotel, handling my clients' financial portfolios with the same methodical attention to detail that had served me well in dismantling my marriage. The money was good, better than good, actually, and I'd been building a solid reputation in wealth management for high-net-worth individuals. People trusted me with their financial futures because I was thorough, careful, and completely honest about risks and opportunities. It was ironic, really. Lauren had always dismissed my work as boring, something for people who couldn't handle real careers like advertising. But my boring job had built the comfortable life she'd taken for granted, funded the designer clothes she'd worn while cheating on me, paid for the house she'd tried to give away. On Friday, I got a call from the real estate agent I'd contacted about selling the house. Elliot, we've got a problem, she said. There's a woman camped out on your front lawn, says she's your wife, and she's not leaving until you talk to her. I drove over to find exactly what the agent had described. Lauren was sitting on a folding chair in the middle of my front yard, wearing clothes I didn't recognize, probably borrowed from her mother, and holding a cardboard sign that read, "Talk to me," in black marker. A few neighbors were watching from their windows, but most had apparently grown bored with the Lauren show. Even Mrs. DeLuca was nowhere to be seen. I parked in the driveway and walked over to where Lauren was sitting. Up close, she looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her face puffy from crying, her expensive manicure chipped and grown out. Hello, Lauren. Elliot, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days. I've been getting your calls. I just haven't been answering them. We need to talk, really talk. About what happened, about what comes next. I looked at her for a long moment, this woman I'd shared 15 years of my life with, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no residual love, just a kind of distant curiosity, like I was observing a stranger. Okay, I said, let's talk. Hope flickered in her eyes. Really, you'll listen? I'll listen. She stood up, smoothing down her borrowed clothes. Can we go inside, please? I just want to sit in the house one more time. No. The hope died. Why not? Because it's not your house. It never was your house. And you lost the right to be inside it when you moved another man into my bed. Elliot, please, I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? I interrupted. Lauren, you didn't make mistakes. You made choices. You chose to have an affair. You chose to move him in. You chose to kick me out. You chose to humiliate me in front of our neighbors. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. I was confused. I was unhappy. I felt trapped. So you decided to trap me instead? You decided I should be the one to leave, to figure out where to live, to start over with nothing while you and your boyfriend enjoyed the life I'd built. Tears were streaming down her face again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you, and I know I handled everything wrong, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. Lauren, stop. We can start over. Lauren, stop. She stopped, looking at me with desperate eyes. Do you know what the worst part was? I asked. It wasn't the affair. People have affairs. Marriages end. I could have handled that. Then what? It was the way you talked about me to him. The way you laughed about how invisible I was. The way you acted like I was some kind of burden you were finally getting rid of. Her face went white. You heard that? I have security cameras, Lauren. I heard all of it. Elliot, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. That's the thing about being recorded when you don't know it. You can't lie about what you meant. You said exactly what you were thinking. She was sobbing now, ugly, desperate sobs that shook her whole body. Please. I have nowhere to go. No money, no job. You have a job? You're a creative director at one of the most successful ad agencies in the city. I had a job. They let me go yesterday. Said the situation was creating a hostile work environment. I felt a flicker of surprise. Because of the affair? Because of the video. Because of the social media posts. Because half the office saw me getting evicted on Facebook, and the other half saw me talking about my husband like he was garbage. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Trent got fired too, for what it's worth. Where is he now? Gone. Moved back to Seattle, where his ex-wife lives. Turns out he was never divorced, just separated. He was cheating on her with me. The hits just kept coming. So you helped him cheat on his wife? I didn't know. He told me he was divorced. Did you ask to see the papers? She was quiet. Of course you didn't, because you didn't want to know. It was more convenient to believe what he told you. Elliot, please, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. I'll sign whatever papers you want. I'll agree to any settlement. Just please don't leave me with nothing. I looked at her sitting there in her borrowed clothes, holding her pathetic sign, and felt that flicker of pity again. But then I remembered something else from the security footage. Something I hadn't mentioned yet. Lauren, do you remember what you said to Trent about the house? About it being ours now? She nodded miserably. What did you mean by that? I meant we could be together there, without having to sneak around. That's not what you meant. She looked up at me, fear creeping into her eyes. You meant you thought you owned it. You thought that when we got divorced, you'd get half of everything, including the house. You were planning to sell it and split the money with him. That's exactly what you meant. You weren't just kicking me out so you could be together. You were kicking me out so you could steal my family's house and run away with the money. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, Lauren whispered, It wasn't supposed to happen like this. No, I agreed. It wasn't. You were supposed to get away with it. I turned and walked back toward my car. Elliot, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. What happens now? What am I supposed to do? Figure it out, I said, and drove away. The house sold 3 weeks later to a young couple with twin toddlers and a golden retriever. They loved the neighborhood, the schools, the mature trees, and the updated kitchen. They had no idea about the drama that had played out on the front lawn, and I saw no reason to tell them. I used the proceeds to buy a smaller place across town, a craftsman bungalow with original hardwood floors and a view of the lake. It needed some work, but it was mine, really mine, not held in trust or complicated by anyone else's claims. Dawn helped me move in, along with Mason and a few other friends who'd apologized for believing the worst about me without asking for my side of the story. You know, Dawn said as we unpacked boxes in my new kitchen, I never liked her. You mentioned that. I mean, I really never liked her. Even at your wedding, I kept thinking, this isn't going to end well. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? I thought about it. Probably not. That's why I didn't say anything. Sometimes people have to figure things out for themselves. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Lauren. I'm staying at a women's shelter downtown. I just wanted you to know I'm okay. I showed the text to Dawn, who read it and shook her head. She wants you to feel guilty. I know. Are you going to respond? No. Good. I deleted the text and went back to unpacking. There were pictures to hang, books to shelve, a new life to build. I had work that I loved, friends who'd proven their loyalty, family who'd always been there. I had a house that was mine alone, free and clear, with no ghosts or bad memories. 6 months later, I ran into Shauna at the grocery store. She saw me coming and tried to duck down the cereal aisle, but I caught up with her by the organic pasta. Hello, Shauna. She turned around reluctantly, her face flushed with embarrassment. Oh, hi, Elliot. How are you? Fine, good. You know, busy with work and everything. How's Lauren? Shauna's face fell. She's having a hard time. She's working at a call center downtown, living in a studio apartment. It's been really difficult for her. I'm sure it has. Elliot, I owe you an apology. We all do. We didn't know the whole story, and we said some terrible things about you online. Yes, you did. Do you think you could ever forgive her? She's really changed. She's gotten help. She's in therapy. She's trying to put her life back together. I looked at Shauna for a long moment. This woman who'd encouraged my wife's affair, who'd helped destroy my marriage, who'd publicly humiliated me on social media, and who was now asking me to forgive and forget because the consequences had turned out to be more severe than she'd expected. "Shauna," I said finally, "I hope Lauren gets the help she needs. I hope she finds peace and builds a good life for herself. But that life doesn't include me, and it never will again." "But she loves you. She's always loved you." "No, she didn't. If she'd loved me, she wouldn't have done what she did. And if she'd respected me, she wouldn't have talked about me the way she did." "People make mistakes. Some mistakes you don't get to come back from," I said. "This is one of them." I walked away, leaving Shauna standing by the organic pasta with tears in her eyes. That evening, I sat on my back deck with a beer and watched the sunset over the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the orange and pink sky like a mirror. A family of ducks paddled by, the babies following their mother in a perfect line. My phone rang. It was Dawn. "Hey, how was your day?" "Good. Ran into Shauna at the store." "Oh, God, how did that go?" "About like you'd expect. She wanted me to forgive Lauren, give her another chance, help her get back on her feet." "And you said?" "I said no." "Good. You know, I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For standing up for yourself, for not letting them convince you that you were the bad guy, for fighting back." I took a sip of beer and watched the ducks disappear around a bend in the shoreline. I didn't fight back. I just stopped letting them walk all over me. Same thing. Maybe it was. Maybe standing up for yourself and fighting back were the same thing after all. Maybe the only difference was in how you told the story. I finished my beer and went inside to make dinner. Tomorrow was Saturday, and I had plans to refinish the hardwood floors in the bedroom. After that, maybe I'd paint the kitchen, or plant some flowers in the front yard, or just sit on the deck and read a book. The possibilities were endless, and they were all mine.